which is a testament to how accounting firms are at marketing and positioning themselves.
Working on it, man. Working
Right.
on it. All right.
It's right.
Alex Hormozi just told us the secrets to how to grow and scale an accounting firm that you love. And guess what? It's not actually in these books. It's inside of this interview. And if you love what he has to share, do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment down below. And I hope you love what Alex has to share about how to create a $100 million accounting firm.
My first question here is, you are incredibly committed to education and self-improvement. How do you select what you will pursue for education? There's so many possible topics. So what process do you go through to select what you're going to be educating yourself on? And how do you also select potentially someone to educate you on that topic?
Yeah. So we do everything off the theory of constraints at acquisitions.com, which is basically that a system will grow until it's constrained, until its limit. So it's kind of like the idea of the weakest link, right? So it's finding what the weakest link in the chain is, what the constraint of the system is, so that we can deconstrain it and then grow to the next natural constraint. And so it's a very simplistic look, but it's extremely effective because it just cuts down all the noise into, like, if I had to pick one thing that's the big limitation of this business, what would it be? And so then we just get laser focused on solving that one problem, solve that problem, and then we move on to the next constraint. And if we solve that problem and the business doesn't grow, then we pick the wrong constraint. And so sometimes the constraint is your ability to judge what the constraint is, right? Which is why, wisdom is one of the hardest things to earn, which comes from experience, right? Is that you're able to, recognize patterns. And so for me right now, to answer the other part of the question, which is like, what am I, well, I'll tell you, I'm focused on learning about brand stuff right now. So brand is my big topic that I've been diving really deep on, brand and media. And I'll probably write a book on brand just from the findings that I have, because I don't think there's many good books on brand, because I could read you 20 different definitions of brand and branding, and they all sound like cockamamie. And so coming up with an operationalized version of what that means so that it can actually be useful. And I try to learn this stuff so that I can use it. And then whatever I learn, I just, pass it forward, because branding for me, despite being now quote known for this, or like an organic content guy, I've only been doing this 2 years. Like, this is brand new to me. Like I have way more experience on the paid ad side. That's what I did for the last decade. And people got to see a tiny taste of that when I was launching the book, but like, I'm still learning this game a lot. And so anyways, that's the big thing, is finding out what the constraint of the business is. And if you need to chunk all the way up, if you want to grow a business, you have to sell more clients, or make them worth more, or decrease risk. Those are the things that are going to grow the value of a company. And so just simply asking the question, like, why do we not have 10 times more customers, or why are we not making 10 times more money? And then figuring out what the answer to that question is, oftentimes is the constraint.
Makes a lot of sense. And just because you're saying, hey, I'm currently educating myself on branding, and that's fresh for you, what would you say is like a major takeaway in terms of education for the topic of branding that you're just like, I wish I would have maybe known this when I started to try to learn about this 2 years ago?
I might go on a real, like, this is like a Pandora's box. If I start talking about it, it might be like 10 minutes. So I can riff on it, but like, buckle in the audience. All right. So here's the deal. So if we look at the origins of what a brand is, right? Where do brands come from? Brand comes from, you brand cattle, right? That was the original use of a brand. And so why would you brand cattle? Because you want to change the behavior of people who look at the cattle. So if you have a cattle that doesn't have a brand and the cattle that does, the people who are looking at it will behave differently. If the cow doesn't have a brand, I might take the cow for myself, or I might kill it, or I might eat it, I might do whatever. But if the cow has a brand on it and I know the guy, I might return the cow to him, right? So it changes what I do. All right, that's an important point. So the point of a brand is to change or elicit a desired behavior in the widest percentage of your target audience. All right. Now, how do you do that? You do that by making associations between something they don't know, your brand in the beginning, with something that they do know that is positive and rewarding, if that's what you want, right? And so the index, it's a 4x4 box of what brand really is. So you've got the strength of the brand, which is away and, you have the direction. So you've got away from and towards, and then you've got strength. So very high and very low. So, if you have a really weak thing that's away from, it's like, I kind of don't like this thing, slow Wi-Fi, like whatever, like a bad brand. On the flip side, you might have a political party, which depending on the audience might be super strong, and away from or towards, right? Now, Taylor Swift, for example, would be someone that I would say has a very strong brand and towards. There's not a lot of people who really hate Taylor Swift, and a lot of people who really love Taylor Swift, right? So it's positive and it's strong, right? Somebody like Ray Romano, if you heard the, or like Tim Allen from the old sitcom days, might be someone who is positive but weak. Like, a lot of people know who he is. Am I going to show up to his event? Probably not, And so the idea is that in order to build a brand, we simply pair things that people know with things that they don't know. The things they don't know is our logo, our tagline, our company, with things that they do know and think are positive. And so if you were to think about the brand as a bouquet of flowers, it's like having many flowers in a bouquet. And so if I were to break the bouquet and spread all the flowers, there is no bouquet. But simply by gathering them together, by making associations, I create something new. And that bundle of associations is the brand. Now, if I were to break one of the flowers or make it rotten, it would affect the appearance of the entire brand. And so that's why if you make a single mistake, a Dylan Mulvaney move for Bud Light, you can affect the entire brand. If I get a DUI or somebody gets accused of doing some sort of terrible, heinous act, right? It affects the entire brand. R. Kelly, bad brand now, right? Despite all of the positive, the one broken rose or the one rotten flower affects the entire bouquet. And so we have to be very deliberate about what associations we want to make with our own brand so that we can continue to positively associate ourselves. And the point of the brand is that we get a desired action or behavior from a specific audience. Because if I bring up Trump, right, for half the audience, they're going to might be inclined towards. The other half, I might be inclined to away. Now, that's okay because sometimes you don't need to sell the entire world, and you can that's why niches and picking audiences is okay. You might, and the idea of growing the brand a lot of times is that you sacrifice some audience for other audiences. So like when I was starting making content, I did it in my closet, right? And there were some hardcore people in the OG Mosey Media days that were like, I appreciate you. That were like, man, I miss the closet videos, right? Now, I might have lost some of those people when we started making a little bit more polished videos, et cetera. Some people, not all, right? And so what we did was I traded losing some audience to gain more. And so when you're making a brand move, you're basically always making a bet that you will gain more of your desired audience than you lose by making a change. And so you can approximate or slowly move a brand over time by making more associations in one direction and fewer associations in the other. And so that's how you can move a brand over time. Bud Light made a wrong bet. They thought, and maybe this was just corporate groupthink, right? That if they made an association with Dylan Mulvaney, that they were going to get more people to buy their beer. That was, fundamentally, that's the only reason you would do it as a company, right? You believe that long term you get more people to buy your beer. The problem was that wasn't true. Now, the interesting thing is that there probably are people who were a big fan of that move. It's just that there were more people who weren't.
They were far away. In other words,
there were more people who were not a fan of that move. And so that became an away from association.
Makes great sense.
And so that is what I am trying to encapsulate and put together into how to brand. Because now that I feel like I understand it a little bit, I see it as, in my opinion, it's kind of like Neo in the Matrix when he's talking to Morpheus and says, so you're telling me that I can dodge bullets? And Morpheus says, well, when you're ready, you won't have to. And so we learn all these tactics about sales and marketing and show up rates and CRO hacks and all this. But if you have a brand, if you see the Matrix, everyone shows up to your calls. No one has price objections. Everyone is excited and refers their friends. It just takes longer to make associations because fundamentally, all branding is teaching. You are teaching someone to do something. You want them to behave a certain way, and you have this red card, and when you see red, it means stop. That's all we're doing. So green lights have strong brands. They're positive. Everyone loves green lights, right? Like it's a simple thing, just no one owns it. But green lights are a great positive association. It's a great brand, right? And so that's the idea of what I'm kind of diving more into, and I see it as the ultimate cheat code for business. It just takes a long time to do, and most people aren't patient.
You're telling me I can dodge business problems?
I'm telling you that once you have a brand, they become irrelevant.
When you're ready, you won't have to, right? Fantastic. Thank you for that response. You talk about deleting problems as your favorite way of solving them.
Yes.
How do you decide what's deletable versus what's not? Because I can imagine the person who really loves that strategy doing nothing and just deleting all problems. So how do you prioritize a problem worth solving versus a problem that is deletable?
Well, it's just percentage likelihood of impact.
How do you measure that though? Like, how do you
So
go
it's
through
going
it?
back to, yeah, it's chunking all the way up to like, will this cost me number of sales, like sales velocity? Will this decrease the lifetime value of customers? And will this increase or decrease the likelihood that, that whatever I'm doing right now continues to occur in the future? And so those are kind of the three variables. So when you're looking at, so we're trying to value a company, right? We look at what's the sales velocity, how many customers they sell, what's the lifetime value of every customer, because then you can extrapolate what their run rate is going to be at scale, at max, unless we change something. And then you divide that by risk, which is how likely is it that there's going to be an outside event that's going to change this thing from continuing to occur, this box of making money. How likely is it that it will continue to grow or at least stay the same? And so if I have a problem, I have to be able to track it back to one of those three things. And if it doesn't really track one of those three things, or there's another problem that has a much higher likelihood impact in terms of it's higher likely and it has a greater effect size, then I'm going to prioritize that. It's just that oftentimes if someone's like, man, I really think we should change the colors on the site, I would just say like, what's the likelihood? Like I had been notorious for having ugly sites my entire career, but I also just have never like, and you can make branding, make associations. And I think there's an argument there, but what's the likelihood that it's going to affect how many companies do a deal with us? It hasn't up to this point. And so is it a constraint of the business? No. Is it something that I could improve? Absolutely. There's also 100 other things I could improve. I could also send more emails, which I don't do. Like there's lots of things I could do, but what are the few things or the one thing that matters most, which then ladders back up to what is the constraint of the business?
Makes perfect sense. In other words, it's elimination of the least, I don't want to use the term valuable, but we're eliminating the things that provide the least return back to the business by simply walking through what's the return going to be if I actually take the time to solve this problem.
If you think about capitalism as a term, it's allocation of resources. And so the job of the CEO, you have limited resources. You have limited time, you have limited human capital, you have limited financial capital. And you have to simply be an allocator of resources. So you basically every single day are making bets on where do I get the best return? And there's just a lot of bets are just not worth making.
Very well said. How do you establish a premium price point for your products or services? Because I completely agree. I love, of all the parts in $100 million offers, I love all of them. But when you talk about what happens when you use price, how emotional investment goes up, how all the things that come from like people buying at a higher price point. But there's some balance to that in the sense that like, if I look at the highest price competitor in my market and I one up them and then they one up me potentially, like, is there ever a point in which we just say like, we're price premium enough, or do we always have to go for the top? Like, how do you make the determination of premium?
So there's let's see, there's 4, 1, 2. I'm gonna see if I'm gonna mess this up, but I hope I don't. There's basically 4 positions in the market. You have luxury all the way at the top, which is technically a Veblen good, which means when I increase the price, demand goes up. And that's because there's an association with the price that makes it more valuable. So the fact that everyone knows how expensive it is affects the value that I get from it. The fact that everyone knows the Rolex is $100,000, the one that I'm wearing, whatever, then it makes the Rolex more valuable. So it becomes a virtuous cycle, which is why LVMH is one of the most valuable companies in the world. Then you have premium, which is basically the above average. So it's there you have to pair utility with the premium. In luxury, the extra price tag is the value. Whereas with premium, like BMW is premium, they're not luxury. They're a little bit better at a lot of stuff. And so you pay a premium because it is a little bit, they use better materials, it breaks less, whatever, right? And so then you have your mid-tier, your run-of-the-mill, your commoditized space, which sucks. And then you have your low-cost leaders, which they make their entire business on how can I drive efficiencies in operations at all levels of the business so that I can be the lowest priced person in the marketplace, right? And still make a profit. And so to wrap to your question of like, when is enough, right? The key indicator for me, and most of this, like the quote higher ticket world, you're not luxury goods. The fact that it's expensive is not the reason that people want to buy it, right? It's actually technically a premium, right? And so you want to price it. And my views on pricing have evolved over time. I'm a little bit less extreme about I'm more extreme about the price to value discrepancy than anything else. And a lot of people get into trouble because they raise the price so much that it's just in excess of the value they provide. And so then they actually create a negative experience. Like if Chipotle were $50, people would probably not like Chipotle, even though the product is really good. But at $50, I don't know. And so the reason Chipotle is so viral, you know what I mean? It's like the price to value discrepancy is so good that they tell their friends, right? And so that's where this kind of marriage of how can I just short circuit people's brains from a value perspective, which is what I try to do with the books and the courses, so that it becomes viral on its own. And then my cost to acquire customers is zero. And so then everything after that is just gravy. And so that's what we try to play with when we're playing. Like the 3 or the 4 variables when you're using this is you've got the price, the value at the top, which is what they get, right? The price is what they pay. You've got your cost of goods to deliver, and then you have your profit left over. And so it's playing with those 4 variables so that you can maximize the amount of absolute profit that the company makes. More than not, pricing high has become shorthand, and where I think people get a lot of benefit from the offers book is that when you price higher, you automatically weed out customers. And I think many times that is the real reason that a lot of people's businesses grow from that price. Now, obviously, there's more profit. You have excess things that you can deliver on. But a lot of people don't actually take that excess money to create a better experience. They do a gotcha, and then they never get anything from that customer again. And so that's the wrong way to use it. But if I had to think like, okay, what are the reasons that, a company might be successful that does charge premium? Is that they actually reinvest the premium price into a superior product, and they are very clear about the avatar that they go after and what the quantitative requirements are that are black and white, that they know from looking at their best customers, their top 20, top 5% of customers, and then saying, we're only going to cater to these customers in the future because the likelihood that we can give them a great outcome is higher. And then that can create, you can merit or earn the premium that you have because you have data that supports that if you are this type of person, we can get you this type of result.
We're going to jump back to the interview with Alex in just one second, but if you are an entrepreneurial accountant and you're looking to add at least $100,000 to your firm in the next 12 months, we'd love for you to apply for our Create Your Dream Firm program, where we give you the systems and support that you need to be able to build your dream firm faster than you ever thought possible. So again, link in the description down below. Click that if you are an entrepreneurial accountant, you love Alex Hormozi, you want to grow by 6 figures in the next 12 months. We are looking to have the opportunity to speak with you, and please enjoy the rest of the interview.
What financial metrics do you pay the most attention to for your portfolio companies, and how often do you check them? I ask because our dream client profile is accounting firms, and I know they're very curious to know what your thoughts are on the finance side and the regularity with which you're looking at them, and specifically what you're looking for.
For me personally, like if I'm like, I'm super, super back of napkin. So I subscribe to the Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett. Like if you can't tell from looking at one page, then it's too complicated. But it's just like, what are how many units are being sold? What's lifetime gross profit per customer? What are the acquisition channels that we're using? Like, how do we actually convert, eyeballs into customers? And what does the leadership team look like? And so if I have a good feeling for, okay, this is where they get their customers, this is how many customers they sell per month, this is what the lifetime gross profit per customer is, and this is what the leadership team looks like, I get a pretty good idea of where I think the company's going to go, what levers we can potentially improve in the business to make it more valuable. Now, I would include in that a calculation from us for net free cash flow.
What does the ideal experience with an accounting firm look like to you? And I ask because one of the things that stuck with me is you said you've never done your own books. Like you've always considered that something that was delegatable, important to delegate. You've also referenced bringing, I believe, accountants in-house, kind of going back and forth between outsource and in-house. So what does that ideal relationship look like to you now? And maybe what did that ideal relationship look like when you were going through your first, 7-figure and 8-figure company?
Yeah. So I think that a lot of professional services should look at Wi-Fi for inspiration. You're like, what does that even mean? Wi-Fi, you don't want to like clap when the Wi-Fi is working. You just notice when it doesn't. And so you just want it to be in the background. You just want it to work, right? So a lot of companies are like that. Like there's a lot of services that people think they need to like communicate stuff on. Like I just want the financials to be accurate and I want them to be timely. That's it. Like it's not like simple to say, harder to do, right? But I just want them to be accurate. I want them to be timely. And I want things broken down in a way that allows me to make business decisions. And that's where like I think the top tier of accountants transform into fractional CFO and CFO kind of materials where they actually help you use this data to make informed decisions about the business. And so I think that's where you get for everyone who's listening to this from an accounting firm perspective, is like, if you can get out of the commoditized service of bookkeeping, essentially, right? I mean, if you were to ask small business owners, what's the difference between accounting and bookkeeping? I guarantee you, most of them would have no idea, right? And so, which is a testament to how accounting firms are at marketing and positioning themselves.
Working on it, man. Working
Right.
on it. All right.
Right. And so the idea is there a way that I can translate what we do into how it would affect a business owner's life? So I'll tell you a little story because I think this might be really relevant. This will be really relevant for you guys. So one of our portfolio companies has had a ton of growth. 3 years, they went from one location to, I think we're at 38 locations now, right? All self-funded, all cash flow. All right. So really, really tremendous growth in 3 years. And it's compounding. So it's growing faster and faster. And when we were at about 30 locations, we were stuck at 30 locations for like 2 quarters. And so I got on the phone with the CEO and he was like, dude, I just feel like I don't know how many locations I can open based on cash flow. And because they had net receivables were a little bit extended, things like that. Right. And so I like shook the screen for a second because it was Zoom call. I was like, I need you to freeze frame this feeling you have right now. I was like, okay. I was like, think about this feeling you have. I was like, what you are feeling is finance as the constraint of your business. You do not have a finance function that is operationalized enough. Like you do not, like you are underdeveloped in the finance function. You have a bookkeeper who's not that good. And so as soon as I could see it just clicked. I was like, that is the constraint of the business. Until we get the finance function in, you're going to just be operating blind. And then once you know we have this much cash flow, we can open 2 locations a month or 3 locations a month, then you can be more aggressive with everything else because you're confident that you're not bankrupting the company accidentally on your own, right? And so I would say if I were an accounting firm, I would try and pinpoint the problems and relate them to how it's going to affect growth in the business. Like how is the constraint so that you can talk in the language that a business owner is going to understand. Like I'll bet you, like if I could see everyone's hands, how many people in your audience, all the business owner does is go to the right, go to the bottom and say, so we made more money this month? Great. They don't like it, and they'll look if something feels off. Like they only look back if the number was low or arbitrarily high. That's it. And so I think adding that level of strategy of like, by the way, I think this is a little fat compared to other companies that we're looking at. This is a little bit under compared to other companies we're looking at. And this might be an area of opportunity. Little things like that actually add value to the business. If I were somebody who was in charge of it.
What's made you switch firms over the years? Has there been errors? Have there been just growth constraints? What has been some of the driving reasons to go from one firm to another to bring something in-house? In other words, what's the inverse of the Wi-Fi, right? Like, has there been like when the Wi-Fi went off, we were like, this is a problem? Like what were some of those indicators for you?
I haven't switched many times, honestly.
That's why you're as successful as you are, if I had to guess. A lot of people bouncing around between firms.
Yeah. No, and it's, to be honest with you, there's like, I think there's two levels, right? You have like accounting, and then you have like strategy, right? And so, I definitely want, like, I mean, I'm always looking for really brilliant like tax strategists more than execution, because the execution, I mean, like anyone can just execute the stuff and then sign off on it as long as it's above board. It's really, I just want someone to take care about, to take a closer look, right? But I've had a CFO in house for the last, I don't know, 6 years. And so I'm honestly, I trust that person to a large degree, and Layla double checks. So I honestly don't, like, I'm actually astonishingly removed from, to the point of abnegation when it comes to finance function. Like I am that business owner who just looks at net free cash flow and I'm like, all right, cool, we're fine.
So this question is more related to capital allocation. We talked earlier about how the constraint of business is resources. So for every dollar that a company makes, how are you typically thinking through reallocation of that dollar to go and get the next dollar or $3? Or how are you normally working through that in terms of percentages?
So I think of this as a completely individualistic problem to solve. So because it actually ladders up to risk. So it's how much risk are you willing to incur, or are you comfortable with as the owner of the business? Because if you're a small business owner or even a medium business owner, typically the vast majority of your net worth is in this one stock. And continuing to double down and double down and double down on that stock can yield some of the highest returns out there, but it also is risky, because I have lost everything twice. And so I've learned from some of those scars. And so with like our portfolio companies, for example, I will do one of two things. So we will either determine like a 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 type setup, where it's like 1/3 will take out just a free cash flow, we'll take its distributions. 1/3 will contribute back into, company reserves. And then 1/3 will go into growth for like new locations or whatever, right? Or new equipment, whatever it is. So that is a really typical way that we will do that. And that is more rule of thumb than it is rule of law. The other way is something that I call the benchmark. And this is probably more common with the businesses that have low capex. And so there we say, okay, what is our watermark for how much cash we need in the bank account to run the business? And then everything above that, we distribute, because we don't require capital to grow the business. So like an accounting firm, oftentimes I would put in that bucket. Like it doesn't actually require capital. Not really. I mean, if you're like, yeah, it does. It's like, well, not compared to manufacturing. So like, no, right? Like there's levels here. But in reality, there a lot of reason I've liked professional services and even consumer services for a long time is that they are super capex light. Now they're operationally heavy in terms of complexity, but the actual like net free cash is great from those businesses. Like you pay your payroll and profit. And then when you bring someone in, they should be able to increase billables or, increase the amount of income you make, and you immediately can pay for them. Same thing, you add a sales guy in and they should pay for themselves almost immediately. So like that's usually, I'd say, like when we have more capital intensive businesses, I usually do 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. That is not a rule of law. It is based. Now, there are some companies that we have that are like, I don't want to take distributions. I want to keep opening locations. And I just say, like, you understand that like we could lose everything. Something could happen. As long as you're comfortable going to zero, like I will be fine. You will not. So I let them make that call because it's their life. With the professional services, low capex, high cash flow businesses, we typically just draw a line and say everything else we take out.
I'd like to get this answer in less than 60 seconds because I know we got to go and I want to be respectful of your time. This has been incredibly informative. How much of a skill should you develop, or how much should you educate yourself before hiring for it? So for example, like, do I need to be a sales manager before hiring for sales management?
Yeah. What you hit at is one of the hardest parts of business, because you need to make an informed decision without context, which is why being an entrepreneur, you end up becoming a jack of all trades so that you can have enough context to make at least an informed decision. And so I'm going to steal a playbook out of, wrong shoulder. There we go. Out of Layla's book here. And I'll give you my tactic around this, which is You want to interview for people who are sales managers, and you don't want to hire anyone for a little bit, which sounds tough. But what you want to do is you basically want to interview for information. Now, if you meet a gold star, that's amazing, but you want to talk to people. And if you know more about it than they do, they should be teaching you. And once you talk to 10, 20 people, they're basically like expert interviews for what it should look like. And so then you get a very good idea of what the role should look like after listening to people. And you'll get an understanding of the level of nuance. And I'll give you this one little tidbit that is super powerful when it comes to judging skill. The quality and quantity of data that someone chooses to collect around their particular department is almost directly proportional to their skill. And so, for example, I have lots of marketers who are like, my product's amazing. And I say, cool, tell me your metrics are. I was like, what's time to value, right? What are the key activation points? Like, what's churn? Right? Like just some of these metrics. And they're like, well, dude, our refund rate's really low. Right. But I'm like, okay. I was like, well, what about the marketing side? They're like, well, CPMs are this is our click-through rate. This is our, this is our conversion on the page. This is our percentage to schedule. This is our percentage to show. This is percentage open rate. This is percentage click. Like they go through all this stuff. And I'm like, right. So I can see very clearly that you're a better marketer than you are at product. And so simply getting an idea of the quality and quantity of the data that someone collects around their department. We'll get like when we hired our director of people, it was the first time that I had someone actually tell me metrics I'd never heard of. And I was like, she's the lady. She's the go.
This has been absolutely amazing. I have one last question and it will take less than 10 seconds to answer, I promise. Est-ce que tu parles vraiment français?
C'était ma première langue.
Okay. My wife is French. She's bouncing around here. I don't speak French that well. But what part of France is your mother from originally?
Non, ma mère, elle est parisienne et mon père, il a appris en Belgique. Mais il est italien. So, c'était sa deuxième langue.
Ouais, ouais. If you are ever in France, it would be an honor to take you and Layla out to dinner. Alex, thank you so much, man. It's been an absolute pleasure. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and please keep changing the game.
Thank you, Tyler. Talk soon, man.